Hello, folks. This is Chris from inkFrog, and this is our March 2019 webinar. We are doing a recorded version of the webinar. We had some technical difficulties when it played before, so I apologize. We're going to try this again, and we'll go right into it. So the webinar is being recorded, obviously, because you're watching it. We are going to have, well, I was hoping to have a live Q&A. That is not available, but if you have any questions after watching this webinar, you are more than welcome to email me. I love getting email from people. My email address is clittle@inkfrog.com, and it will be on the screen in a moment in case you want to see it there. This webinar is going to cover a quick overview of inkFrog and myself, a couple of important things to know about eBay listing templates, the templating process with inkFrog specifically, and then I'm going to walk through building a designer template using our system. So inkFrog itself has been around for approximately 20 years. We have 200,000 eBay sellers using us, and we manage about 50 million eBay listings. We are the longest running eBay listing platform on the market. The only one that was running longer than us was TurboLister, and they discontinued that. So we've been around the longest compared to anyone else. We have a Shopify and BigCommerce integration, and we also connect to Amazon. A common question I frequently get is, are you planning to connect to other marketplaces or services? And the answer right now is yes, but we're not able to say which ones or give an ETA on them. I am the product marketing manager for inkFrog, so I work at various levels of the company. I'm involved with the product development, the user experience, the customer support side of things. I manage the overall designer program, and I'm in charge of the marketing of inkFrog. So I kind of connect to all the different levels. A couple important things to know about inkFrog Designer and eBay templates in general. First is the designer templates, which I'm going to show. It's meant for eBay listings, not eBay store templates. There is a difference. So an eBay listing template is what appears on your individual items. An eBay store template is what shows up on your eBay store if you have an eBay store subscription. inkFrog does not do eBay store templates at this time. If you want a store template, you'll have to set one up yourself or use a third party for that. And there are many great ones out there. So that's just something we wanted to clarify with this. The designer templates are a living document. What that means is if you have created a designer template that you're happy with and you've put out 500 eBay listings with it, if you later on go back and make some revisions to that template, it will automatically update those listings. So let's say you want to change the text or the color or your logo or anything on your template, it will automatically apply to every listing using your template. eBay specifically, a big caveat I want to talk about here is they don't allow you to use URLs, email addresses, or phone numbers on your templates. We've seen a bit of an increase in this over the last month or two. So I just wanted to mention that this will get you in trouble if you try and do this with any listing templates or item descriptions on eBay. They don't like it. They don't want people leaving eBay to go buy your product off your website. So just a fair warning, you will get into trouble with eBay if you try and do that. So the goal for this webinar is we want you to be familiar with how we custom build templates for our users, how to access inkFrog Designer, and how to create and edit designer templates yourself. So there's two options for using inkFrog Designer. One is our designer add-on. This is available for the next 7 days. It gives you full access to inkFrog Designer, which gives you 250 pre-built templates. You can create your own templates. You get access to the cross-sell widget and the other features that are associated with it. This costs $10 a month on top of your current inkFrog subscription. So if you are on the basic plan paying monthly for $11 a month, accessing the designer add-on will cost another $10, so your total bill would be $21 a month. You can activate this in your account by clicking on the billing and subscription page, and there's a little box there that basically says activate it. This will be going away in approximately 7 days from now, so if you want to use the designer add-on, this would be the time to do it. The designer plan is a permanent part of inkFrog. It has been around for 12 months at this point. Everything that is included with the designer add-on is included with the designer plan. You also get all the features of our unlimited plan. So you can have unlimited eBay listings, unlimited accounts, you have staff accounts, you have the Amazon connector. You can connect to as many stores as you want. And we will also custom design a professional eBay listing template for you. So you'll get access to my team where we create professional templates just for you. It'll have your branding, your logo, everything on it, and only you will have a copy of it so you can use it for selling on eBay. The designer plan costs $48 a month or $480 a year, and it does replace your current inkFrog subscription. So if you're currently on, say, the professional selling plan and you want to go onto the full designer plan, it will replace your current plan of, I think it's $18 a month, and you'll be paying $48 a month. To activate the full designer plan, you go into your billing and subscription page, you're going to click on change plans, and then on there is the option to select designer. I'm going to walk you through the process for how we custom build templates for people who sign up for the full designer plan. It'll only take a moment. When you sign up, you're going to get a survey from our team, basically asking for a copy of your logo, your website, the color scheme you like. It asks a whole bunch of questions. It takes about 10 minutes to fill out the form. This will give us a good starting point to figure out what do you want your design to look like. We pull in all that information, and our designers look at it, and they put together a template that kind of matches your existing business. If you don't have any of this information, that's fine, but we need to ask you anyways. When we have that information, it takes about 3 business days, and we will send you a mock-up, usually by email, saying, here's what we came up with. Do you like it or not? If you like it, we move on to the next step. If you don't, then we go back to the drawing board, or we take your feedback. If it's a minor modification, we can work with that too. And we keep going until you're happy with it. We will then code your template. That takes approximately 4 business days. And then you're ready to go. So from start to finish, from the day you sign up for inkFrog Designer to the day your professional template is ready to go, it's approximately 14 days or 10 business days. That goes faster or slower depending on how fast you communicate with us, how fast we communicate with you, if we have to make some revisions and so on. But 14 days is our average, so that's what we aim for. And once you sign up for inkFrog Designer, you can access the designer system in 2 ways. The first is you can go straight to www.inkfrog.com, log into your inkFrog account, and then in the left menu of inkFrog Open is a menu item called Templates. You click on that, and then a little sub-menu will appear, and you'll see something that says Designer Templates. You just click on that, and then you go. You can also go directly to it by just going builder.inkfrog.com in your website browser. When you access Designer, this is the page you're greeted with. It has 3 kind of core sections. In the left are kind of the main buttons that people use. You can create a new template from scratch. You can view all the existing templates, and you can see the categories of templates. In the middle of the screen, there's a whole bunch of pre-built templates. There are 250 pre-built templates that we have put in there already, and we add more frequently. And then the third part is in the top left corner is a private button. If you click on that, it takes you to kind of your private folder for templates in the designer system. So any template you save or modify or create from scratch, it will appear in that private section. So now I've gone through that, I'm going to give a walkthrough example of how we create a designer template, and I'm actually going to go and work on a bit of a template to show you how it all works and put it all together. Excuse my sniffling, I am recovering from a nasty cold. So we're just going to pretend that a customer came to us for a custom template request for a tennis supply store. They gave us their color scheme. They said they want the cross-sell widget. They gave us their logo, which is that tennis superstore, and we put together a mock-up for them. So we took all this information. We looked at their eBay store. We looked at their e-commerce store if they had one, and we put together a design like this. So this is what our design team came up with. So it has their logo, it's got their overall color scheme, it has their products, things like that. So it gives you a really good idea of this is what your eBay listings will look like once you use the template. It lets people see all the other products you're selling. It lets them connect to your store. It shows the item details for the particular product. It's got our cross-sell widget, all kinds of stuff. So this is just one example of hundreds of designer templates we've done over the years. This one I created myself. It was basically throwing one together from existing work we've done, and I think it turned out really well. The logo is terrible. That was my design. I apologize. I am not an expert designer. That's what we have a team of them for. So we're going to go and start building this. You can build this entire template in approximately 15 minutes once you have the core design worked out. So this is one of our inkFrog test accounts. To access Designer, we just click on Templates in the left menu, then Designer Template. This is going to put us into the designer templating system. It takes a minute to load because it has to show 250 screenshots of templates. Even if they're really small, like they are pretty small images, there are quite a few of them. All we're going to do is click on Create Template, and it's just going to say the default template style. That's the only one we offer right now. And you just have to give it a name. So we're going to call this Chris's Super Fantastic Awesome Tennis Design Template. And we're going to say it's for sporting goods. It takes a minute for it to register this in the system. All right. Here is the very basic template. It just shows the essential core elements of it, and this is where you can kind of do what you want with it. We're just going to make sure that this is saved. Okay. Now, the thing to understand about designer templates is they're kind of divided into two things. We have the structural side of things, and then we have the element side of things. And I want to kind of go over this a little bit. In the templates, everything is divided into rows. So a row is basically a vertical section across, or horizontal section across the page, and it has different content in it. You can access to see how many rows are in a template by just clicking up on Edit Rows. What that does is it hides all the individual elements on the page, but it shows you how many rows there are. So each row has different formatting and standards you can apply to it, and then you can drop different pieces of content and widgets into each element or row. So this gives you a lot of control over what's in the template and what's not there. The elements section, it shows you the full template and all the individual widgets that are available in it. So right now, by default, it shows the product description, our image carousel, and the image title. We're actually going to take all this out. We're going to start essentially from scratch. So I wanted to show everybody how this works completely from scratch. So now we have absolutely nothing. It's a completely blank template. Now, the first thing we want to do is we're going to start at the top and work our way down. So each kind of section is a row in our designer templates. So we're going to start with this top row, which we're just going to call the header row. And that's comprised of the logo and these links. Really easy to put that in. All we're going to do, is first we have to add a row since we deleted them. So we do that by clicking on Layout, Add a Row. And it's going to say, okay, how many columns do you want in your row? Each column can support individual widgets, and it expands to the full width of the page. So we want kind of a 2-column row, one for the logo and one for these links. So we're going to say 2 columns, and it's going to say, okay, what do you want to call this row? So we're going to call this our header row. And then it's asked, what do you want to call the individual cells in the row? Since we have 2 cells, we're going to call one logo. So we're going to stick the logo there, and the other one links. It doesn't matter what you call these, the customer doesn't see them. It's just for your reference. And then it's going to ask, okay, how do you want the column layouts to be? So we can have a perfect 50-50 split. We can have a 33-66% split or a 66-33% split. It just kind of determines how wide each section is. So we're going to say the logo doesn't need to be that wide. So we'll just make it 30%, and then the links can be the other 60%. So now we have a logo box and a links box. And we got to put some stuff in here. So we're going to start with the logo, and we are going to put an image. So we select media. When we want to add stuff, you click on the content box. So we got logo selected, and then the left menu gives you all the different elements, and they're kind of categorized. So we're going to say we want to add a media image, and that's going to be our logo. So I've already uploaded the tennis store logo to this account. So it'll show up in your inkFrog image library, and here, so we just say add that to the page. There we go. And then the next one we're going to add, we want these 3 menu items. So when you're adding links like this, we actually have a widget specifically designed for this called Store Links. So we make sure the links box is selected. It shows up in blue. And then we're going to go Text, Store Links. And this will pop up a little window. It's going to ask you for your seller ID and your store ID. The difference between these is your seller ID is your eBay username. Your store ID is your eBay store name. So if you have an eBay store, you want to make sure you've got this in here as well. If you are just an individual seller, you just need your seller ID, which is basically your eBay username. And then it'll say which marketplace do you want these links to point to. So if you're selling in the US, you want .com. If you're in the UK, you want .co.uk, and so on. Now, by default, the store links widget will have 5 buttons on it, and 2 of them are kind of ambiguous. So we're going to take one of those out because one says my store and the other says my items for sale. They kind of point to the same place. One goes to your eBay user page. The other goes to your store page. So if you have a store subscription, it's usually better to use the store button. If you're just an individual seller without a store subscription, you usually just go with my items for sale. So to edit these buttons, we just double click on them. And this opens up the configuration menu again. And we're just going to click on button order. So these are the 5 buttons that show by default. And we want to hide, let's say, my items for sale because we have a store. We can also add a few buttons here to other eBay links and pages if we want. We can delete them. The 5 default buttons, you can't delete them, but you can rearrange them, and you can also hide them by clicking on the little eyeball. So now we have 4 links. Now, they don't exactly look like they did in the mock-up. So we see that they're black text. They don't have the gray border around them or anything, so we need to apply some styling. That's really easy to do. When you click on an element, you get a menu in the right here, which controls the overall design and layout of it. Now, the important thing to look at here is right under what it's called. So store links, which is a component, there's going to be a little drop down here saying which part of this do you want to modify. The main body is kind of like the overall control of it, and then the buttons are the individual buttons on this particular widget. So some of these widgets will have multiple different options on here to select, so you make sure you select the right one. We're going to edit the buttons themselves. And the first thing we want to do is get rid of this border. So we click on border, and we're going to say, I don't want a border, and I don't want shadows. And we click OK. That got rid of the borders. Now we want to change the text color because we saw, like, this is really faded gray. That's just the default color. We're going to change it to black. And you know what? I think we want to make that a little bigger. And maybe bold. Now that made it too big because it wrapped around, so maybe we need to go down in size a little bit there. Okay, this is starting to look really close to what we have on the template. Now on the template, it's pushed down a little bit, so it's not right up against the top. The way we fix that is we make sure it's selected, and we want to make sure main body is selected on this dropdown because we're affecting the entire thing, and we're going to click on geometry. This affects things like positioning and how large an item is. So we're going to say, keep the relative positioning, which is the default, and we're going to say we want to put this menu 20 pixels from the top. See, that just pushed it down a little bit. We could say maybe 25. That's better. We just click OK, and it's done. So this pushed it down. We could even go a little bit lower if we wanted. It's kind of, in the design, it's like right up in the middle of the tennis ball. So, I mean, if I wanted to be really picky about this, I could say maybe 40. Looks a little bit more like it. So we've got the logo and we have the store links all done. Now, the next thing we want to do, let me just bring this over, is we have this black menu. And usually when we have a menu below like this, these are category links. But they work the exact same way as the store links. It's just you have to copy and paste them from your eBay store. So we're going to add this menu. Now that actually spans the entire width of the page. So this takes a different row because the first row we created was 2 separate cells. So now we're going to add a new row. We're going to make it full width, so it's just 1 cell. And we're going to call this categories. Categories. Second. I thought that was turned off. My apologies. Okay. So we're adding a full width row called categories. So here it is. Now we need to add some menu items to this. So we're going to add another store links widget. So we make sure categories is selected, and then we're going to say text store links. We'll just add it in so we can see that it does span the entire width, which is great. We're going to take out that background again because on our design, we don't have any borders around them. We just have the black background with the white text. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out the border like we did before. Now to change the background, all we have to do is make sure this is selected and then make sure main body is selected. And we're going to say we want to change the background color to black. There it goes. And then we want to change the text on the buttons. So we select buttons and we're going to say change the text to white. And maybe we want to make that a little bit bigger. Maybe 16. Okay. So we now have a menu that's going all the way across the page, and it has the default 5 buttons. But what I can do is I can go in here into the button order, and I could say, instead of having the default buttons here, I'm going to add my categories. So we might say, whoops, sorry, I accidentally closed it. Let's say we're going to add, because this is a tennis store, we're going to say rackets. We're going to say tennis balls. We'll say shoes. Sorry, I keep clicking off of the darn thing. Rackets. Balls. Shoes. And one more. I don't play tennis, so I don't really know what else people use for tennis. Just say clothing. Okay, so that added them, but it left on the original ones. So we actually need to hide the original ones by just clicking the little eyeball to hide them. Now, by default, these are linking to the eBay marketplace that we said we're selling on. What you would want to do is you go to your eBay store and you're going to copy and paste the links to the category in your store. We're not going to worry about that on this demo, but that's what we usually do is we'll copy and paste the links to each category so that when people click on it, it goes right to your category. There we go. So we got 4 categories in the menu. In our mockup, we have a whole bunch more, so we can play around with it after. The next thing in our design is this big banner. So this is just an image. We're going to add another row. I like having each row separate. You could put the image right below the menu if you want, but it's kind of nice to have it separate, and that way you can move them around as you want. So we're going to say banner. And again, we have to add an image. So we're going to go media image. And I've already uploaded this banner to our inkFrog account, so I just select it from our image library. There it is. Now you may notice that there is quite a bit of spacing happening here, and there's also this question about the background. So we're going to fix that right now. In the mockup, the background has this kind of peach color. So we're going to fix that first, and I have the exact color right here. This is just standard web colors. To change the background of the entire page, you're just going to click on Page and Background, I believe, and then Background. There we go. So we changed the background to this peach color. Now the problem there is, by default, the rows all have a transparent background, but in our mockup, they're all white. So we're just going to change the background color of the rows themselves. When you're trying to make changes to a row, you're just going to go Edit Rows to make sure you got your rows selected here instead of the individual elements. So we have our header row selected. We're just going to say change the background to white. Same with the categories menu. We're going to change the background to white. Same with the banner. We're going to change that background to white. So that changes them. And then if we go back to the seeing our elements, there we go. We've got our white banner, our background. So this looks a lot more like the mockup. Now, there is a bunch of extra padding and spacing here. That doesn't look quite like what we had here, where there's just a little gap. This is controlled through padding. If you're familiar with cascading style sheets at all, eBay supports them. So the way to fix this is we're going to click on the category row, and there's this little gear icon here. If you click on that, you get this little menu. And by default, we are applying 15 pixels of padding horizontally and 30 vertically. The horizontal padding is fine on this, but the vertical padding is not. So we're going to customize that padding. We're going to say keep the 15. Maybe change this padding to, let's say, 5. Now that did make a change. It didn't look like much because the rows above it and below it have the exact same padding too, so we just have to modify them too. Padding 5. There we go. So that kind of compressed the space. We could lower it and play with it as much as we want. It's not a big deal. Just make sure that this is saved. Okay. So we have the top third of our template done, and that only took 10 minutes. Now the next part, I don't want to take too long going over this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show how to do this middle section. So the item specifics and the cross-sell. We'll leave out the menu for now just so we don't take a lot longer to do this, but essentially the product categories is just another store links widget with all of your store links in it. So you add the store links to a column and then you just populate them all. It's really easy. So we're going to focus on these two for now. We're going to add a row and we're going to call this one product details. And we're going to make that, we'll make that 3 columns. We'll call that main. We're going to have the category menu. We're going to have the photos. And we're going to have the description. Yeah, we kind of want that to be an even split, I think. Okay. Now again, we have the peach background, so we're just going to go into the rows. Oops, change the background to white. So now we've got the white background. We go back to elements. And we're not going to worry about the category menu, which is this section on the left for now. We're just going to focus on these 2 boxes here. So we'll start with the image carousel. We have on the designer templates, we have a section called the image carousel. So if you select a box, then we're going to go media carousel. By default, this will show you placeholder content. Don't worry about it. It's just until you actually publish this to a live listing, it doesn't show you anything but dummy data. So we're just going to say add this to the page. What this did is it adds our image carousel, and if you have more than one image on the listing in general, it will kind of show little thumbnails here, and people will click on them and it'll change the main image. You can kind of cycle through them. eBay allows up to 12 images. Then we're going to add the item description. So in the item description, we have the product title and then the text. That's really easy to add. We're going to make sure the description box is selected, and then we're going to say we want to add the text of the product title. Now, again, this is placeholder content. It is not going to match your exact product. We could say, well, you know, I don't like how big that is. We can maybe change that down a little bit. There we go. And then we're going to add the actual item description right below. This is the item description field you populate in inkFrog. And that's just another text widget. We'll say add the product description. There it is. And we may not like how big that is, so we'll say, you know what, let's make that a little bit bigger. So we now have the product photos, the title, and the description. We won't worry about the menu for now. And the other thing that's on here is the cross-sell widget. So that's these 8 items that are shown here. Now, our designer included it beside the menu. What we've seen lately is it's actually better to have this to be the full width of the page, so it kind of goes below the menu and the item details. So I'm going to put that in. So we're going to slightly change how the design is meant to be. We're going to add a new row, and we're just going to call it cross-sell. Okay. So there's our new row. We're going to make sure it has a white background, just like everything else. Now the cross-sell is its own class of media widget. So we make sure we have the row selected. We're going to go media cross-sell. Now this is a demo account. These are just test products in it. When you add the cross-sell yourself, you're going to see all of your listings in inkFrog show up in here. And you could select which ones you want. Or if you don't select any, there's actually a random mode. And you can say show 8 random products from my account or show 12 random products from my account if you want. Or you could just add them manually. You can format how many are shown on each row, which eBay marketplace that they're from. You can control the buttons and so on. So we're just going to say, show me 8 products from my account in rows of 4. And we'll just add that to see what it looks like. So there's our cross sell. Now again, it's placeholder content until you publish this. So once you publish this, this will actually pre-fill with your products, or if you manually select them from the list, which you can do by double-clicking on it, and you could manually select these. We're not going to worry about that right now, but it will populate it there. Now this looks pretty plain. If we look at the cross-sell here, the button is red. It just looks a little bit nicer. So we are going to copy that red, which I have copied right here. It's the same red that is used as tennis in the logo. So we are going to make sure the cross-sell is selected, and we're going to say we want to change the color of the call to action button. That's the thing that says shop now. And now we're going to say we want the background to be red, which is good. But black text on a red background does not look really good, so we're going to change the color of the text as well to white. And maybe we'll make it bold. It looks a little better. We might change the font or the size and such. Now, right now, the Shop Now button is above the text and the price. In our mockup, we have it below. So to change that, we just double-click on the cross-sell widget again and go into Advanced Settings. And at the bottom here it says Show Call to Action button, yes or no. So you can actually disable it, so just the image is clickable. That's perfectly okay. People do that. Or you could change the text on the buttons. You can even change the text per item if you really wanted. And then here's where you change the button placement. So we're just going to say change that to at the bottom. There we go. So now the buttons move down. I think we're going to take out the pricing as well. So let's remove the price. We'll just say hide the price. So it's just the image, the title, and the button. There we go. Looks a little bit better. There's still a lot of design elements that we could apply to this to make it look better. And like we just say cross-sell in here. What I like to do is to say check our other products or some kind of text like that. You could even add a text box right above it and format it completely different from the cross-sell if you wanted. But this is the basic idea. Now, the other thing to know about the cross-sell widget is when you first add it to a template, the listings that will show up there are the ones that you've selected, or they are randomized, and they will stay like that. If you want to change the listings, you need to come back into Designer every once in a while, double-click on the cross-sell widget like this, and either change which products are featured, or you hit Clear All to deselect everything, and then go into the Advanced Settings and turn on the randomizer. If you don't do that, it'll always show the same products. Now, we also have on our design some tabs here. I really like these tabs that we have, and they're really easy to add. So I'm going to show you how we put those on. We're just going to say add a row, and we're going to call it tabs. Okay. So it's its own row. You can drag and drop it or place it in different places if you want, but for now, we're not going to worry about it. We're going to say put the white background on it, just like we did with everything else. And then tabs are under text, tabs. And it'll say, what do you want the tabs to be named for by default? So by default, it's payment, shipping, returns, but you can pretty much put anything you want here. We'll just say add them. So now we have our 3 tabs. It doesn't look overly great because we need to change the formatting just like we've done with everything else. We make sure the tabs are selected. And we're going to say, you know what? I want the tab I'm looking at to be red just to make it stand out more. So we're going to say the main body. We're going to change the background color to that red. Now, the black text on red background doesn't work again, so we're going to try and say, you know, I want white text and maybe make it bold, just to make it stand out a little more. Now, you may notice that the text here vanished because we changed all the white text and it's a white background. So what we're going to do is we're going to say inactive headers, so that's these 2 headers. We're going to change the text color. And we could say, let's make it gray or black. So people know that the tabs are there, but if they click on them, it changes. So now we're on the shipping tab and it's red, and these 2 go white. To edit the content in all these, all you have to do is double click them. And you can copy and paste information into these, and that's what most people do. Another alternative you can do is you can change it to an HTML editor. This is kind of a new feature we added. The way you do that is to double click on whichever tabs you want to pop open the menu. And by default, it's a rich text editor, so you can copy and paste and do some basic formatting. But you could say, no, I want HTML code in the payment tab. So that will change it to HTML. And you say update, and now when we double click on it, it actually shows the HTML code. So you can do that, and then when you click out, it goes back to the regular text. So it shows you how it all works like that. The last thing in our template is just basically a blue row with store links. I'm going to leave that out for now just for time purposes. We've been going for quite a while now. And we also left out the left menu. So in, I think, about 25 minutes or so, we put together about 90% of this template. There's still work that needs to be done, like the category menu. We might play with some of this stuff. Personally, I like rearranging this order. So I don't like having a really small image. I'm going to show you how to rearrange this quickly, and then I think we'll wrap this up. So let's say that instead of having the images here with the description and the title like this, it's kind of compressed. Instead, I want to make them on top of each other to give them more space. So we're going to add one more row, and we got to make sure we keep the menu, but we're going to have just one column beside the menu instead. So we're going to call this item teacher or something like that. And then we still got the menu, cat menu, and then item details. So we have to make sure we select the right proportion because we want the category menu to be a little bit smaller. And that added the category, the new section down here. Now, we want to move this all the way up to where this section is. So the way you do that is in the layout menu. These are all the different rows we've created. And when you hover over one, it kind of highlights it in gray on the right. So we want to move item feature up a bunch. So we're going to go up, up. We'll make sure we're keeping an eye on it here. And that's the right spot. We'll get rid of this row in a minute just so we can focus on this one. We're going to make sure that white background is there again. So background white, show us the elements. Now, inkFrog is, the designer is a drag and drop interface. So we could say we want to move the title, the photos, and the description down to this one box. So they're all kind of stacked nicely on top of each other and a little bit larger. We're going to start with the title, which we just click on, and we can drag it down. The blinking green tells you where it's going to drop it. If I let go of the mouse right now, that's where I would stick it. Now I want to move it down here to the item details box that we just created. It will glow white if it's an empty box. So there we go. And I want to move the photos below that and then the text description below that. So I'm going to grab the photos next. We're going to drag that down. So you see how it kind of shifts the blinking green from left to right? So if it's blinking on the left, it means it's going to put it above. If it's blinking on the right, it means it's going to put it below. So I want it to go below. So there we go. And then we're going to do the same with the item description. Again, the blinking tells you where it's going to drop it. So we want it to go below the photos. There. So this gives it a bit more space. I prefer this kind of layout as opposed to side by side. I think it looks nicer. On a lot of templates, we don't even have a category menu on the left, so you have the full width to look at, but it looks just fine going like this. Now you can play with the formatting a little. We can say, well, now this is bigger. Maybe we can make the text a little bigger. We can make the description bigger. Maybe go, I don't know, 16, and we can make the title. Let's make that a little bit larger, and let's change the font to something else. We have a whole bunch of pre-built-in fonts. If there's a different font that you would like available in Designer and it's not currently in here, you could just email me the font. If it's a free font, we can add it, no problem. If it's a paid one, I mean, someone has to pay for it, so that's a little bit trickier. But we basically just need the font file, and most of them are available on Google Fonts that we can use. So let's say we want to use the Bungee font. There it is. So all kinds of freedom and things that you can do. Now we still have this original 3-column menu. We're going to get rid of this. The way we do that is we're going to go back to rows just to make sure we don't delete the wrong one. We're going to select the row, and then we're just going to click that little trash can. Gone. If we go back to elements, that menu is now gone, or that section is now gone. So it's really easy to click and drag stuff around here. I'm going to show you how to add the category menu here, and then we're going to wrap this up. So in our mock-up, we have this long list of categories that we wanted to add. And really all this takes is we make sure that section is selected, and we're going to say media, store links again, sorry, text, store links again. And it's the same as before, it's just those buttons, but we have to rearrange this slightly. So first, in our mock-up, They are all kind of stacked on top of each other nicely. They don't have the border and such. So that's really easy to do. First, we're going to double click on it. We're going to say we want this to be vertically aligned instead. Oops. There we go. Now we got to get rid of those borders again, just like before. So we'll say for the buttons, let's get rid of the border. And then we want to change the text again to black, maybe bold. So now we have a menu here. All we need to do is make sure we put our eBay username and our store ID if we have one. And then we just change the buttons here. So we could hide these 5 and we can add 20 or 30 categories that we have set up on our eBay store if we wanted to. And that's pretty much it. So we've put together a eBay listing template using inkFrog Designer. I mean, it still needs a little bit of touch-ups, but I think this gives you a really good idea overall of how the designer system works and how to use it. There's lots of widgets and tools available in it. It's a great system. I think that's all we're going to show for now. If you have any questions about any of this stuff or would like to know more about Designer or you want to know how to do something in Designer, please do not hesitate to email me. My email, once again, is clittle@inkfrog.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. And I wish you all the best in selling, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Cheers.